It's 6:30 p.m. on a Friday. You're standing in your kitchen, still in your work clothes, staring at a text message notification that's been sitting there for 20 minutes. It's the group chat. Everyone is confirming the location for dinner. You should be excited. You like these people. You haven't seen them in weeks. But as you look at your shoes, then at your couch, then back at your phone, you feel it. A heavy, creeping sense of dread. Your thumb hovers over the screen. You start typing. Hey guys, so sorry, I think I'm coming down with something. Or maybe the classic, work was a total nightmare, I'm wiped. Have a drink for me. You hit send. You toss the phone onto the cushions like it's a live grenade, and then it happens. That rush. It's not guilt, it's not even FOMO. It's a wave of pure, unadulterated euphoria. Your heart rate slows, your shoulders drop 3 inches, and suddenly the air in your apartment feels lighter. You just won back your night. You've just experienced the JOMO, the joy of missing out. But it's deeper than that. Why does canceling a plan feel better than actually going to the party? Why does the opt-out provide a bigger dopamine hit than the opt-in? Today we're diving into the secret psychology of the Flake-Relief Cycle. We're exploring why your brain treats a canceled social obligation like a narrow escape from a predator and what it actually says about your mental battery, your identity, and the weird way we've started valuing our solitude in a hyper-connected world. Relatable memory, nostalgia. Think back to how we used to hang out, before the era of the infinite scroll and the read receipt. There was a time when a plan was a pact. You called a landline, you set a time, and if you didn't show up at the mall fountain or the cinema lobby by 7:15, you were effectively dead to the world. There was no running late text. There was no pivoting at the last second. Because canceling was so difficult, we didn't do it. We showed up, and usually we had a great time. But in the digital age, the friction of social interaction has vanished. We are constantly accessible, which means we are constantly on. Remember the specific smell of a Friday night when you were younger? Maybe it was the scent of cheap cologne, the cool air of a basement, or the hum of a car engine idling in a driveway. Back then, the house was the cage and the outside world was the freedom. But something shifted. For a huge portion of us, the outside world became the labor and the house became the sanctuary. Now, the relief comes from the contrast. We live in a world of performative presence. On social media, we're curated. At work, we're collaborative. Even at a fun dinner, we're on, navigating the politics of the table, the volume of the music, the subtle pressure to be interesting. When you cancel, you aren't just staying home, you're reclaiming your uncurated self. You're choosing the version of you that wears mismatched socks, eats cereal for dinner, and doesn't have to laugh at a joke that isn't funny. That rush of relief is the sound of your social mask hitting the floor. Scientific/psychological validation. So why does this feel like a physical high? To understand the relief of the cancellation, we have to look at what's happening in your brain before you send that text. Psychologists often point to a phenomenon called anticipatory anxiety. For many, a social event isn't just a dinner, it's a series of micro-decisions and stressors. What do I wear? How do I get there? Who will be there that I don't like? What if I run out of things to talk about? In a study published in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships, researchers found that for individuals with even mild social anxiety, the cost of socializing, meaning the cognitive load required to navigate the interaction, is often perceived as higher than the reward. Your brain's amygdala, the smoke detector for threats, starts firing. It treats a Saturday night gala like a threat to your resources. When you finally cancel, you trigger what's known as negative reinforcement. In psychology, negative reinforcement is the removal of an unpleasant stimulus, which makes a behavior more likely to happen again. The unpleasant stimulus is the pressure of the upcoming event. When it's gone, your brain releases a hit of dopamine and GABA, the chilled-out neurotransmitter. You've essentially rewarded yourself for escaping. Then there's the Zeigarnik Effect. This is the psychological tendency to remember uncompleted or interrupted tasks better than completed ones. A plan is an open loop in your brain. It stays there, humming in the background, consuming RAM. Canceling that plan closes the loop. It clears the cache. That sigh of relief you let out is your brain finally being able to delete a file it was struggling to process. However, there's a darker side. A 2018 study in motivation and emotion suggests that while this relief is immediate, it often leads to a post-cancellation hangover later. The relief is a short-term spike, but it can erode social self-efficacy over time. You start to believe you can't handle the world, making the next plan feel even more daunting. Real-life implications. This cancel culture, the personal kind, not the internet kind, has real-world consequences on our relationships and our sense of self. If you're the person who feels relief, you might start to view your friends as obligations rather than assets. Your calendar becomes a list of chores. This impacts your career, too. We live in a visibility economy. If you're constantly retreating to the safety of your living room, you're missing out on the weak ties, those casual acquaintances who often provide the biggest opportunities for growth, new jobs, or fresh perspectives. But let's look at the emotional pattern. Why is the guilt missing? Often it's because we are suffering from decision fatigue. We make thousands of choices a day. By the time 7 p.m. rolls around, we have no willpower left. Canceling isn't an act of malice towards your friends, it's an act of self-preservation. You are literally protecting your remaining energy. In relationships, this can create a relief-resentment gap. You feel relieved, but your friend, who perhaps spent all day looking forward to that connection, feels rejected. In the digital age, we've forgotten that our relief comes at the cost of someone else's disappointment. Because we can't see their face when we send the text, the empathy gap grows. We think, oh, they probably didn't want to go anyway, projecting our own exhaustion onto them to justify our behavior. So, where does this leave us? Are we all just becoming antisocial hermits hiding behind our screens? Maybe it's not that cynical. Maybe the relief you feel is a signal. It's a quiet, persistent voice telling you that the life you're living is perhaps a little too loud, a little too performative, and a little too crowded. If you feel more joy canceling a plan than attending it, it might be time to ask, who are these plans for? Are you saying yes to things because you actually want to go, or because you're afraid of what happens if you stop being the fun one? There is a profound beauty in the empty evening. There's a specific kind of magic in the silence of a house when you were supposed to be somewhere else. It's stolen time. It's a secret window into who you are when nobody's watching. The goal isn't to stop canceling. The goal is to build a life you don't feel the constant need to escape from. To move from the relief of the cancellation to the peace of the intentional no. When we start valuing our time enough to decline invitations up front, we stop needing the high of the last-minute bail. We start showing up for the things that matter and staying home for the reasons that count. You aren't a flake. You aren't a bad friend. You're just a person trying to find a balance in a world that never stops asking for more of you. And sometimes the most radical thing you can do for your mental health is to just stay in your pajamas. If you've spent this night on the couch after sending that "I can't make it" text, don't worry, you're in good company. If this video made you feel a little less guilty and a little more understood, go ahead and hit that like button. It helps the channel more than you know. Do you have a go-to excuse for canceling, or do you prefer the honest approach? Let's talk about it in the comments. And if you want more deep dives into the weird ways our brains work in the modern world, subscribe and join our community. Would you like me to explore the psychology of why we stay in toxic friendships next, or perhaps the science of bed rotting? Let me know. Thanks for watching. Go enjoy your quiet night. You earned it.